Hello there, Pursuing Freedom friends. Thanks, as always, for being with us today. If you're new to the podcast, welcome aboard. We've got a great episode in store for you today. And if you are one of my repeat offenders, well, thanks for coming back and being here. I really appreciate your support, and I hope you continue to find value in the podcast. I wanted to take a moment before today's episode to share that I am excited to announce the date for our 2024 virtual business planning and lifestyle design. It's going to be November 30th from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Mountain Time, or 12 to 2 Eastern. And I've been teaching this simple one-page plan for your life and business for nearly a decade now. And it's been transforming my life and countless others in the sheer simplicity and the process I teach to reflect, go inward, and get clear on the vision and goals that are anchored in your heart, quiet the voices in your head, and be willing to believe in, dream of, and achieve the extraordinary so you can design a business that you love, that powers the epic life you've always imagined. So hop over to pursuingfreedom.com/goals and save your spot. Again, it's November 30th from 10 to 12 Mountain Time. This is a free virtual workshop, and you will leave with your vision crystal clear and ready to achieve for 2024 and make it your best year yet. So let's go ahead and jump into today's episode, and I hope to see you on the 30th. Hi there, this is your host, Erin Bradley, and today I want to nerd out a little bit about the power of goal setting and a few stories around how setting goals has changed my life and how it can change yours. Because initially, and you might be able to relate to this, when I went 100% commission, I never set any goals for many years. And as with all things fundamental to mindset, it's because I didn't believe I had any control over my future in this business. So I don't know about you, but when I went 100% commission, I jumped off the cliff and had no safety net and no wings to fly. And I just started throwing stuff against the wall to see what sticks and kind of fingers crossed, hoping for the best. And as a result, as many of you know, I fell flat on my face and kind of crawled my way back for many years until I got to a point of being able to consistently pay my bills. But I certainly would not call it financial significance by any stretch of the imagination. And funny enough, I was 100% commissioned for about 4 years before I went to a workshop where the teacher was speaking on the idea of setting a goal. And she encouraged us to write down a number that represented income or maybe a volume or number of transactions or something like that, but just put down the number, right? And then she challenged us to double that number. And I remember cringing, first of all, because the thought of doubling the number, it felt very unrealistic. It put me in a place of paralysis of how could I ever make that happen? And then fear of what if it doesn't work? And then fear of what if it does, because I thought I was at my true capacity with the number I had put down, all this other stuff, which is really just a representation of the power of our minds, right? The chatter in the brain, the narrative, the voices. So very often it's difficult for many of us to put a goal out there that represents far beyond our limited mind can imagine to be true. And then we want to get caught up on the how before we're even willing to give that hope or wish or dream a voice. But she challenged us. And so she had us write the number down that was that double that number. And this was 2011, as I mentioned. And for the next several years, my business was plateaued at what I now look back on and realize was my own personal capacity. And we do all have a personal capacity. There are only a certain number of hours in the day, and our energy and our enthusiasm can be finite at times. It is not limitless. You can run out of steam, you can run out of energy, you can run out of motivation, you can run out of time, right? And so when those things start to become compressed, we feel that pressure, that bottleneck, and in some cases, a suffocating feeling that will often cause us to take our foot off the gas and start to backpedal a little bit. So to think about doubling the number that represents a suffocating capacity is very challenging. So I had written the number down and I had put it in a drawer somewhere. And then I went on to get nowhere near that number for many, many years. And like I said, I had never done any goal setting. That was the first time anyone even started that conversation in my brain. So fast forward 2 years and it's the end of 2013. And I'm in another workshop where they encourage us to write our business plans for 2014. And I had never written a business plan. I'd been self-employed now for 7 years without ever writing goals, without ever writing a plan. And I had no idea where to begin. And I'm looking at a blank piece of paper thinking, how do I even get started? So I borrowed somebody else's business plan. And I said, let me see your business plan. And then I basically just copied his plan. I changed the numbers a little bit, but it was a very extensive 15-page plan. It had the marketing calendar, it had financial goals, volume goals, number of transactions, buy side, sell side, daily activities, the whole thing. And so I copied it basically, and I then promptly shoved it in a drawer and never looked at it again. And so by the end of 2014, I was exactly where I had been. Nothing was changing. I was continually hitting my personal capacity, experiencing burnout, taking my foot off the gas, seeing my business dry up, getting motivated again, driving it back up, burning out again. So riding that perpetual hamster wheel and roller coaster of broke to burnout over and over and over again, and wondering, when is this going to change? And funny enough, I decided going into 2015, okay, let me try this again. Let me write some goals. Let me make a plan. But I want it to be much more streamlined. So I created a 1-page business plan, which I remember coming to the same mastermind group with my color-coded 1-page plan, and it looked like something a kindergartner would make. And everybody was laughing at me because I didn't have the extensive plan. But the good news is I continued to look at my 1-page plan. Like a nerd, I laminated it and I shrunk it down to the size of my planner, which meant that every day, instead of a bookmark, I used my business plan as my bookmark, and I would open to today. And before I did anything, I would review those goals. And there's power in reviewing your goals because it activates the subconscious part of your brain called the reticular activating system. If you don't know what that is, the easiest way to describe it is that when you're buying a new car, you start to see that car on the road all the time. And it's not because the car did not used to exist on the road. It's because your subconscious has now been activated to notice something that you put attention on. So because you put attention on this type of car, you're starting to notice it in your peripheral vision all the time, all around you. The same thing is true for the goals. So going back to that 2011, right? Had I put that number that was double what I thought was realistic or probable or possible or wasn't going to cost me my happiness and joy, had I kept it in front of me over and over again, I could have probably gotten there sooner because I would have been activating that reticular activating system, which would have awakened me to notice opportunities, relationships, doors opening that I might not otherwise see because I'm simply not putting attention on that goal. And so it is powerful to write your goals, and it's powerful to review them over and over again. And so that's what I did. I was going into 2015 and I put some pretty ridiculous goals. One of my goals was to take my volume in my mortgage business from 18 million to 30 million, which is a significant increase. And if I'm honest, I didn't think it was necessarily realistic per se, but I was willing to play the game, right? That's what it is. This is just a game of life. And if you're willing to experiment and play with these things that you hear on podcasts or you read in books, and just kind of lighten up and try it, because instead of thinking, what if it doesn't work? Maybe you think, what if it does? I mean, wouldn't it be kind of cool to double your income if it doesn't cost you your livelihood and your happiness and your joy? I think it's worth a shot, right? The challenge is that we're afraid to write those big, hairy, audacious goals down because we want to know how before we're willing to give that hope or wish or dream a voice. And this is the one thing that we have to be willing to do. We have to be willing to dream beyond our perceived reality or what we believe to be possible before we know how, or the path can never unfold. And I've talked about this many times here on the podcast and in my workshops, but it's like putting the pin in the GPS. If you gave me your mailing address, I would put it in my GPS and I would find a way to get there. And there would be many paths that would unfold. And some might require airplanes or trains or cars or bicycles or by foot, which would determine the length of time it takes to get there. But the reality is, you might as well drop the pin in the GPS because time is passing anyway. So what harm is there in dreaming beyond what you believe to be true before you know how? So this was just a game. I was like, okay, I'm going to put a ridiculous volume number there that's far beyond anything I'd ever experienced. And I also put build a team and buy another property. I didn't know where I was going to buy the property. I didn't know how to build a team. That was for sure. And I kept it in front of me all year long. And at the end of 2015, crazy enough, we had closed the year at nearly 39 million in volume. So not only did we hit the scary number, we exceeded it. And more importantly, we added 3 amazing people to our team. And we also bought our first property, a little condo in the mountains, which later resulted in us moving full time to the mountains, which was always a pipe dream of mine that was seemingly unrealistic and impossible. So more evidence to the unrealistic and impossible becoming inevitable if you're willing to drop the pin in the GPS. But more than anything, what was fascinating was, in hindsight, in 2015, I hit that ridiculous number that I had written on the index card in 2011. It took 4 years, and I never really believed it was possible anyway. So I don't even know if I was aspiring to achieve it, because I had this perception of sacrifice of time and energy and enthusiasm, which to me is a suffocating sacrifice. Well, looking back, what needed to change was the entire way of doing business, because there was no way for me to get from where I was plateaued to where I had dropped the pin when I put that number on the index card. There was no way for me to get there doing what I had always been doing. And this is the key, is that so many of us, we want to expand, we feel called to more, and we aren't willing to allow ourselves to have that dream because our brain is so loud in analyzing the how. And since we don't know how, and since it feels like a sacrifice, we're not even willing to try or to drop the pin. In reality, what got you to where you are is not going to get you where you're trying to go or where you could go. And this is important because your actual potential is unlimited. You and your time and your energy and enthusiasm are limited, which means you alone have a capacity. And when you start to push the limits, some people even start to survive their own success, and in some cases even resent their own success and then resist it. So they pull back. But I see too many entrepreneurs playing small, settling for what they think they're capable of, which is limited by what they've known to be true to date, when in reality, limitless is available to you. Expansion, growth, financial freedom, financial independence, all of these things are there and available. They just require a different set of rules, because what got you here is what got you here. It's not going to get you to that next destination. But we talked about this on a coaching call this morning. Why not dream of the next destination? Because if we're honest, convincing ourselves to settle for less or for mediocrity or for just enough is not liberating. It's not fun. In fact, it's painful to convince ourselves to talk ourselves out of big dreams because of fear. That's painful too. So are there going to be challenges on the journey towards new goals and new destinations? Of course. But do you face challenges staying put? Yes. So there's no life without challenge. There's no life without fear. So why not play the game? Why not be willing to say, what if it works? And that could be kind of cool. And I don't know how, but why not just drop the pin in the GPS and be okay with the fact that I don't know how long it's going to take? So yeah, I couldn't have gotten to that volume number by myself. I wouldn't have wanted to, but the result was tremendous and also really fun, because from there, it became apparent that we could do whatever we want. We just have to be willing to, number one, drop the pin before we know how. Number two, have faith in the path unfolding. And number three, be willing to change the rules of the game and accept that getting to that new destination is going to require a new version of me and a new way of doing business. And that's why I'm so obsessed with the coaching, because there's this saying I heard years ago that sometimes you have to borrow the light you see in others, and sometimes you have to borrow the light they see in you. And what I see as my superpower is seeing that light within you and then observing as you are sort of held back by the wall of belief, right? The belief of what you think is true. And these thoughts, they become beliefs, they become behaviors, they become habits, and they become your outcome. So all we need to do is fine tune a little bit and tweak those thoughts that are creating these beliefs. And sometimes we have to do that first, and then the belief starts to evolve, and then the behaviors change and the habits change, and your new reality becomes something that you never imagined possible, but that was always there waiting for you. So it's almost become fun to just set silly goals and then watch them unfold in the most unexpected ways. And also to lighten up about, I don't know how long it's going to take, but why not try to get there? And we don't just set the goal. This business planning workshop that I've been teaching since back in, 2014, I guess, is when I started teaching it, almost 10 years now, is that one of the challenges I see, and one of the challenges I personally experienced when I did that first attempt at a business plan, is that I was looking at a blank piece of paper and trying to think my goals into existence. What should I write? What is realistic? What do I think I can achieve, right? And we're caught up there in the thoughts. And the problem is your heart already knows, your intuition knows when you're called for more. And the fear in the brain is going to be loud enough to drown out the voice of the heart, unless we do a little bit of a process to help you work backwards into goals that are anchored in the heart, rather than goals that are clouded and brought from the head. Because when you start saying, what do I think I should do? What do I think is realistic? You're going to have a lot of buts. I always tell people, don't be a butthead. We all have a butt up there. Like, sure, I wish I could double that number, but, right? But that's too much of a sacrifice, but that's not realistic, but that's going to cost me too much time and money, etc. So our butt is so loud in our head that we become a butthead who's holding ourselves back from the expansion towards the extraordinary life and business we've always imagined. And so in my workshop, we do a little reflection process to help you awaken to the light within you. And we do that by looking back. I always tell people that the process I teach doesn't change. It's you that's changing. You are evolving year after year. What excites you is different. What stresses you out is different. And what you feel called to is different. So while the fundamental process of reflection and vision and goal setting doesn't really change, you're changing, you're evolving, and your business needs to be evolving alongside you. So we work through some questions. And, one of the questions that I ask every year is, name 3 new relationships that you've developed in the last 12 months. And then I ask everybody if they could think of at least 3 people. And everybody always has at least 3 new relationships. And then I say, are they positive relationships? And everybody says yes. And it's like, well, yeah, because usually who you think of to write down as the new relationships in your life had a positive impact on your life. And the reason we do that is to point out to you that when you are putting the pin in the GPS to that foreign territory, that unfamiliar destination that feels scary and awkward and unrealistic, the cool thing is you haven't even met half the people that are going to show up on your path to nudge you towards that outcome that seems impossible, right? So we look back to be reminded of, oh yeah, every single year I meet new people. I deepen existing relationships. I have extraordinary things that I'm happy about. I have people to be grateful to. I have things to be thankful for. And when I do that work first, I start to awaken the truth within my heart and start to give my heart a voice. And from there, we work through some visioning exercises that lead us towards the goals that are truly anchored in an emotional and powerful why. Because when there's emotion there, when the thought of achieving the extraordinary is so exciting for you that it basically lights you up and makes you laugh out loud or maybe even cringe, because it's so big and it's so unreal that it like activates an electricity within you to imagine it being realistic for you. That's where we start to create transformation in our activities that can create new results for us, right? Because when we're just operating out of old habits, we're going to get the same kind of results we always have. So we need to awaken from within, get clarity around what lights us up, create a vision for our life that excites us and gets us out of bed in the morning, and then put thoughts into how to get there after we've decided that we're going there. And then those thoughts create habits and beliefs and activities, and all of a sudden you're on your way. So it's just about putting yourself in the driver's seat of the landscape of the future and putting yourself in the room with people that remind you of the future you want for yourself, instead of just being a passenger in life and taking what you can get. It's lifestyle design, truly design, like landscape design, instead of just settling. And more than anything, because it requires a different set of rules to get from where you are to where you want to be, we have to also spend some time talking about action planning. What are the rocks in your schedule? What are you saying yes to right now that energizes you and moves the needle? And what are you saying yes to that drains you? And what are you running towards that's a heck yes? And where are you spending time in procrastination and dread and resistance? So we do a little bit of work to say, there might be some things in your schedule or on your list that need to be removed because they're holding you back from the next level version of you. And then we need to figure out what needs to be added in to help you grow that garden, that landscape that feels exciting for you, that feels expansive and bright. And that's your future that you're designing. So we do a little bit of that. And then last but not least, we also focus on the time management piece. So when we became self-employed, we all had a vision of being our own boss, freedom and flexibility. But how many of us find ourselves racing on a hamster wheel, never unplugged, never disconnected? And then I ask myself and others, does that feel like freedom? Wouldn't it be nice to have a schedule that feels light and purposeful and energized and exciting? So when I look at my calendar, I know that on this day of the week, during this window of time, I'm always working on this project that creates the outcomes I want and moves the needle. And I show up energized and focused and enthused to ensure that I give my very best to the activities that are going to take me to the new destination I'm dreaming of. And wouldn't I like to have some downtime to rest and recover and reflect on how far I've come and focus on where I'm going, so I can continue to seek those opportunities and allow my reticular activating system to wake me up to the new relationships and the doors opening all around me, because they always are. We're just often closed to them because we're stuck where we are. So my job is to help you acknowledge that ridiculous wish in your heart and be willing to say, what if it works? And then chart the course beyond what you believe to be true, because what you believe to be true is often limited by what you've experienced to date. And if you want proof that you're capable of more than you've ever imagined, just go back to a younger version of yourself and find one area in your life where you've already exceeded your own expectations as a younger person. And there's your proof. You are meant for more. You are capable of far more than you've ever dreamed possible. And if you join me in my lifestyle and business design workshop, I will show you how to unlock the truth within you, find that light, find that purpose, and redesign the future of your business and your landscape to be something that you love, a life you love powered by a business you've designed, and one that is fun and light and taking you to places you can never imagine until you get there and prove to yourself, oh, dang, I did that. If I can do that, I can do anything. And if I can do that, you can do anything. That's the reality. So I hope you join me on November 30th from 10 to 12 Mountain Time, and leave with your simple one-page plan, your vision to turn the year ahead into the best year of your life and the catalyst for massive transformation in any area of your life and business. As always, I love and appreciate you. Make it an awesome day. And if you're enjoying this content, please don't forget to leave the 5-star review wherever you are consuming it, because it helps us continue to attract the amazing guests we've had on the show and help this content get found, help more people on the journey towards building a life you don't need a vacation from. Make it a great day.